we know who you really are. The good guy. Oh, Kira, you scoundrel. All right, welcome back, everybody, to another Happy Landing. Tanner, joining me as always, how are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. How about yourself, my guy?
Doing well. We're here for Solo, but before we get into that, thank you to Movie Meal patrons, Steve, Kimberly, and Karen. You guys are amazing. Guys, our merchandise is on 20% sale right now. Use the promo code Movie Meals. No space, all lowercase. Movie Meals at teespring.com. I'll link to the description. It's 20% off. That's because we're going to discontinue a few things. And next week-ish, late next week, we are going to drop our brand new merch line, taking some bold risks. Spent half my day today designing them. Pumped. I really love what we got. Already ordered some of it, so it'll be here in time for the official drop. So guys, if you wanted to get something that's about to be discontinued, go get it. If you don't, no worries. But we also have a big cool thing coming if you want to wait and see what that is. All right. Solo. I think this is going to be a long discussion. We got a lot to talk about. So I think we just jump right into Solo, a whole video about it. Talk about books, and there's not really any news anyway. We can do all that another day. Well,
Right.
Sound good to you?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So I know I was a fan of Solo before rewatching it. I'm still a fan of it. It sounds like you were less of. Do you want to tell me your thought process here?
Okay. So before I go into this, I actually want to hear your general thoughts before I launch into mine, because I'm going to talk about the good things that I like about it, and then I'm going to launch into the cavalcade of things that I don't like about it.
Sure. So the notes I wrote down I wrote a whole page of notes here. Movie Meals, another Happy Landing fan. Whole page of notes. It's all
Same.
None of it's about the actual film. All my notes are the production stuff because I want to be able to talk about it, because this thing went through production hell. I mean, this thing went through it. So when I get to we'll get to these, but so the movie, I remember the first time I saw it, my expectations were low, which helped. But I like it for what it is. It's a fun space adventure with Han Solo and Chewie. It does take a minute to get there. I like Woody Harrelson as Beckett. I like him. I like Newton as what's the girl's name in the film? Val. I like Val.
Yeah.
I wish she was in it more. Jon Favreau just can't not voice a character in Star Wars, and it's hysterical, but I like his character. I like the aesthetic. I like the design of what we ended up getting. I think Alden does a fantastic job as Han, and we'll get into a lot of the reasons about all the issues, but I think he's great. Lando, obviously, I don't think there's a single person that exists that doesn't think Donald Glover's a great Lando. I like the Kessel Run. I like the end. I think there are some moments that are on the nose that are too much, and there's some things I can't stand. But I don't think they scored big here, but I think they moved the chains a little bit. I think this is a win for I think it's a win for Disney. I think they pumped out a good, fun movie. But if money-wise, it's a loss. But those are my initial thoughts of Solo. They stayed the same. I don't love the movie. I don't hate the movie. I like the movie.
Oh boy, get ready for this one.
I'm excited.
So, I want to say, I mean, I guess going off of it, I like it better than Attack the Clones. And I think I like it better than the Phantom Menace.
I mean, I definitely like it better than both of those.
I just in those regards, I think it's more fun. I think it's got better dialogue for the most part, but okay, positives first. Like you said, Alden Ehrenreich, I love him as Han Solo. I thought he absolutely nailed it. Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian, I love him. He goes a little bit more in the lines of almost caricaturizing Billy D. Williams Lando. which I'm perfectly okay with because holy cow, like the charisma coming out of Donald Glover when he plays Lando, you're just like, God,
It's so good.
I need more of you.
One of my favorite lines is him doing the whole with Beckett where he takes 20 or 5% off his cut when the Falcon's actually been impounded. And
Right.
he says like, I don't agree with it.
I
I
don't like
don't
it.
like it, but
I don't
I
agree with
accept
it,
it. Yeah.
but I accept
I like that.
it.
I really like that. That's such a Lando line to me, and
Yeah.
I find it really entertaining. But
Uh,
I'm trying to help you out anytime you bring up the good stuff. Trying to help you out a little
yes.
bit before you
Well,
destroy this movie.
again, like I mean, like I've talked about with every single Star Wars thing, there are moments that I really adore and I really love. In every single movie, I think there is something to be pulled from it, and so I wanted to talk about the positives of it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I think that if I almost have to wonder myself that if this would if one of the big issues that I take with it is I feel as though tonality, it's all over the place, that there really is no tone that they're sticking with, and that really feels like that comes from the bouncing around of directors and where exactly they wanted to take it. In the beginning, they let go of, I forget who the original directors were for this, of like, oh, we went out wanted to go a different direction because they were making it too funny or too slapsticky.
Yeah,
And those were the
we'll
first
get
moments.
there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Those are the first moments when I was like getting into it where I was like, "Uh-oh, what's going on here?"
Yeah,
But so we lose a lot of tonality. I feel like Han doesn't have the agency throughout most of the story. Now, granted, that's also because he's kind of just getting his comeuppance as he's getting off of Corellia. He doesn't really get it until the end, and he almost entirely, for someone that's supposed to be the scoundrel, he is required to rely on the kindness of others to not screw him over in this very harsh galaxy multiple times, which just feels really odd to me. It like when we're introduced to Solo, he really is this scoundrel. He's like he'd been dealing with the smuggling, like seedier underworld. He very much has that vibe of like, I'm only out here for myself because I know exactly how this world operates. And I just, tonality, they really kind of seem as though that they're really trying to make Hondo out to be this good guy, the guy with the heart of gold. And he is that, but I've always felt that Han Solo at this point in time was a lot seedier, or should be seedier. When I'm talking about the kindness of others, like oh shoot, what was it? The moment when like Han or him and Chewie are like trying to run towards the ship, and then all of a sudden they're like, I think I like that kid. I think I'll like jump back down and go get him. When beforehand it really, I'm just kind of at odds of like, why? Because you guys were so against all of this,
well,
and
they
then
get him. They get him the first time because he has Chewie now. All of a sudden, he's got a Wookiee, and they talk about how much they could use that muscle on a job like this.
I mean, that's fair, but I guess the whole idea being that initially that they were okay just being the three of them, and they were very much like, it's just going to be the three of us. And then we get the later on, Beckett's like, you know what, I'll do this kindness to him. And then later on, we get the line of Beckett saying, oh gosh darn it, what's that? What's the line that he says? It's if there's anything I've learned in this game, don't think everyone will betray you.
Yeah.
Always think that. And it just, I guess it just kind of felt at odds, which, like you're talking about, I love almost everyone's in here. I think everyone's delivery and what they do is amazing. I just feel like tonality, that a lot of the things that we get with Han Solo tend to actually really kind of cheapen him as a character, and also cheapen his relationships between Han and Chewie. There was this is one of those instances where I do actually feel like the extended canon of like Han and Chewie meeting is better, because we get a much more I don't know, just heartfelt connection between the two of like,
You do. You get bigger moments too.
right, like Han joins the Imperial Academy, winds up being an awesome pilot. He actually joins and becomes an officer, and is flying his own ships at this point in time. he has an officer tell him, "Oh, there's a derelict ship. I need you to go on there and kill everyone." He goes on and finds out that Chewie, is being the vigilante that he is going around saving a bunch of people, and there's a bunch of child Wookiees that are on this ship, and his superior officer is ordering him to kill not only Chewie but also all of the children on the ship. He's like, no, it's a big turning point for him of like, no, I can't do this. This isn't what I signed up for. Turns against him, saves Chewie. Chewie owes him a life debt, and then we really kind of get to bloom from there.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's far more of just like, oh, we're gonna throw him to the beast, and they're gonna beat each other up for a while. Han, for some reason, happens to know Wookiee
We'll get
for
to
some
that.
reason, and so that whole bit happens, and then they just happen to be these two dudes that are just kind of hanging out with each other. It really feels like, more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, sure,
Sure.
there's the moment where he like pulls him off from the train, trying to help him, but and also every other cool thing that we get about Han Solo that we see from the other movies are really just their hand-me-downs. It feels like him getting the blaster for the first time. It's really just kind of a sideshow thing that Beckett's just like, here you go.
Yeah.
Um,
I do love the moment though where Lando tosses the blaster to him and he catches it and spins around. I think that is like that's what a young Han to me feels like.
sure,
More than
yeah.
him getting the blaster. But
Let me think. The I feel like the Falcon is extra shiny, and my god, like the length of time that it takes for that thing, like the interior of that thing to be like pristine white to then go to that like muddy tan color. I was like, Han, what have you been doing to this ship, my guy?
Yeah. What do you think of the Kessel Run?
I like moments of it.
Like I want to my specific point when Han flies out, not anything happening on the planet. When Han is taking over, the blockade shows up and he actually does the run. You like moments of that? I don't want to lump in the planet stuff.
No, I lump. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember my notes. That entire fight sequence on the landing pad, I think, is terribly done. I don't know where the action, but anyways, specifically when we're talking about the leaving from Kessel,
Yes,
I think him venturing out into the like uncharted space that's out there, I think that's pretty interesting. And I mean, like, it's a fun flight sequence that we do get. I guess maybe I don't know, it just feels a little chintzy, the moment that we get of like, oh wait, we got to inject this directly into the fuel line and then get it, and then everything, like, oh, we get the classic moment of the Falcon stalling and then boo. But I mean, like, coming across the space monster and flying around that, I thought was pretty cool. I'm actually not super crazy about the Imperials showing up during there. That to me felt very much like, I know they made a moment in there of like, oh, well, they know that you started making a ruckus on Kessel, so they sent people in here.
yeah.
It just feels kind of weird to send an entire Star Destroyer.
What bothers me is them bringing up how the Pikes control Kessel, and the Pikes it should have been a Pike blockade, is
Right.
what it should have been, or you say the Imperials run Kessel. It's one or the other for me. That's
Right.
my problem with it, because I don't mind the blockade. I really like the sequence. I like the injection of the fuel. Han sitting there for the first time. I love when Chewie starts like hitting the controls, and I love the whole. When did you learn how to fly? You're, what is it, 400 years old or something?
Yeah,
like that?
you're 190.
Yeah. Well, you look great. Like I'll say this: when Chewie and Han get together, I think their banter starts to. We get that old banter. They do a great job.
When the banter is popping off between the two, like those little moments that you do get, I'm like, yes, I love that.
Yeah.
But again, it just, I guess it just kind of feels a little hollow. To me personally, I just wish there was more heart that was between the two, because like the life debt thing was such a huge thing for Chewie of like, no, he saved my life and did a lot of good things for me, so I'm here and he's family now.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even when they're talking around the campfire, like he translates for Chewie saying his people were wiped out and he'd love to see like free his people. But it would have been, I think, better for him to be like, look, this guy just saved my life. I'm
right.
not doing anything with my cut but hanging with this guy. I owe him a life debt. And then maybe somewhere later talk about Kashyyyk. But one of my favorite things, real quick, still about the Kessel Run, though, is with the kind of classics engine stalling last second booster. I
Yeah.
always feel like they put that in there, and I think it plays well because it's like Han's kind of cocky, like, yeah, we'll get through it. I did it the first time, I'll do it again. Like that's kind of how I feel it. And I've never met any, and maybe you'll feel indifferent because I've never met anybody who feels this way. I love the conversation where he goes, "Hey, I just made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs." And Chewie says something, and he goes, "Nay, not if you're round down, buddy." That is such a Han moment to me. I love that moment. It might be one of my, if not my favorite line in the whole movie. I just love it. And he could have made it in 13 parsecs, like
Right.
we don't
Right.
really know what he did it in. He definitely did it impressively. I mean, having raw coaxium's going to get the job done for you. But like that line is just such a great line for me. Like
Yeah.
and he gives it so cocky, just not if you're round down, buddy. I love it. I love that line. But
It's like those moments, those little glimmer moments where you can see Harrison Ford's Han Solo coming through
yeah,
his own, and that's what blows my mind about his performance is he takes it and makes it his own. That's incredible. We have
yeah,
one of the most like titular and incredible characters that we get in all of cinema that like people are just enamored with, and somehow he is able to come through. He takes the Han Solo role and makes it his own while also paying homage, and you
yeah.
really feel like it's Han Solo, and I
When
love that.
I can't remember the specific point, but at one point early in the movie, he gives the finger,
Yeah,
and he's like, "Hey," and I loved it. Like those are the moments I noticed I'm grinning hard.
right.
A moment I'm not grinning hard is the other part of Kessel. The battle I can't stand. They just stand out there, and
Oh,
all the
you're
shots
talking about when like
when
the
they're
battle on the
actually,
landing
yeah,
pad.
yes.
Right.
Now I'm talking about the other half of it because I love the actual run,
Mhm.
but it feels rushed. It feels like that battle is a product of the poor production, and they all just stand there. They're
Mhm.
not in cover. I know Han's done that before, but even in A New Hope, he's firing two shots and he's getting the heck back. Um, and I just
There's no
look,
main line of action. There's
no,
none.
there's not. And we're about to get the thing I hate the second most in
Mhm.
the whole movie. And then we'll get to what I hate the most. Um, and I hate it. I mean, Rise of Skywalker hate. Um, L3 is one of the worst droids in Star Wars. And everybody who likes her is about to attack. Phoebe Waller. I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I absolutely love her. She's an incredible writer. She's a very, very incredible actress. I love her show Fleabag. It is incredible. I'm so glad she got to live out a dream and be in Star Wars. I can't stand the writing that Lawrence and John did, and maybe all the other million pieces for L3. I don't mind the idea of a droid more sentient having a physical connection to a human like Lando and thinking we should be free as well. I think that's a cool idea. I think it was executed so poorly. And I
Mm.
think her people disagree with me so much on like the Last Jedi's humor that it doesn't always feel like Star Wars. I think her humor is the biggest example of not Star Wars. Like the P joke, that is like bad DC humor to me. Um, uh, I can't stand her when she goes. I'm happy. I know the Falcon's been, made up of it's what is it made up of three droids throughout its extended canon. It's supposed to have all these different droids at some point. That's why Lando calls it a she because he had like I know that's some extended canon stuff. I'm fine. I'm so glad when she becomes the computer and she stops because I can't stand the droid. I'm watching. We're starting our Rebels we watch rewatch,
Mhm.
and I don't like Chopper very much either, but man, I'll take Chopper any day of the week over L3. And I wish, because I think that's a cool concept. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think it's great talent, but it ended up being executed poorly for me.
I'm
But
I'm in
how do you feel?
I'm giving in honestly, I'm in complete agreement with you on that one. Initially,
Love it.
so something that I thought initially is that when they loaded L3 into the computer system, that she was also like part of the flight controls, effectively making the fact like removing any sort of idea that Han is actually a good pilot. And
Yeah,
I thought I remembered it that way, but I'm completely wrong. They just take the like the
just the
data banks and the
navigation data. Yeah,
processing to allow her to be able to like plot a course through Kessel or so on.
yeah.
Um,
Best navigation equipment now is basically what
right.
they have.
So I mean, like that part, I was like, you know what, I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay with that. Um, they do weirdly make a lot like they make a weird deal out of the dice in this movie. Like I'm not super bothered by that. That feels like a weird nitpick that I would come into, but like it just feels so odd because it was just kind of a fun thing that they had floating
Yeah,
around in the ship to add a little variety to things, and then they explicitly like take the shots like, oh, these dice, they're super important,
yeah.
they're really big to his character.
It's interesting. I think because the dice, I didn't like. I never paid it like I knew the dice were there, but I never like cognitively thought about the dice. You know what I mean?
Right.
Until the Last Jedi, when he hands her the dice, he takes it, and then I was like, okay, that made sense to me. I actually think that was Ryan doing a great love letter moment, getting what he could from the Falcon for Leia. But then this movie, I feel like Kathy was like, man, the fans went nuts for the dice. Our sales for dice went up 1 million. Make this a focal point. And I don't mind it, but the fact that now this dice, like this is really, I mean, you could say this movie is Dice, a Star Wars story. Like it's how the dice got there. And I don't mind it, but you are right. They do a lot of like moments of really looking at the dice.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like centerline shots for like a couple seconds, and you're just like, why? Like,
yeah.
I
Well, I
mean,
guess it's a big connection for Han and Kira. And
I guess.
I do want to say though, so that's the only performance we haven't really brought up is Kira.
Yeah.
Um, I am a huge defender of Amelia Clark. I think
Mm.
she gets crapped on way too much. I think hard Game of Thrones fans constantly talk about how she is not the best. Her and Kit are not the best. I think she is an incredibly talented actress. She has got a very poor agent, is what she has. Getting in Star Wars was great. She just happened to get the wrong movie. Um, uh,
I would have loved
I,
to have seen her in some of the sequel movies. I think that would have been fun.
Yeah, like maybe if they just, kept the same character, another additional character forever instead of, oh, we don't want Rose anymore. Bye. Now we have Janet. But she is great. I think she's great in this movie. I like her character. I like the connection. See, the thing with the dice is, at some point Leia and Han are flying the Falcon, and Leia says, "Where did these come from?" They're just talking while they're flying, and he, the love of his life is talking about the first love in his life, and
Mm.
like that's an interesting moment for me more than anything. But I think Kira does a great job. I like that she sticks to her guns, being part of Crimson Dawn. I love the Darth Maul tease. Loved it when I saw it. Love it now. But what do you think about Kira?
Uh, you know, I've this one was actually one that I've been consistently like back and forth on. Um, Olivia's really not a fan of it. I think I'm less harsh on it. Um,
On Kira?
on Kira,
Okay,
unlike him having a romance.
sure.
Um, it's I think it works. Sometimes I feel it's a little shoehorned between the two. Because I don't know, like eventually we know at some point in time that Leia and Han are gonna wind up being together.
And then not together.
And then not together. But I don't know, it's like I love her performance. I think it's really fun once we see her again. But yeah, when they immediately get done with their job on this imperial planet for processing Oh, why am I forgetting the name of that?
The
If this was Star Wars,
coaxium.
the coaxium. There we go. If this was Star Wars trivia, I'd be done for right now.
Point for me.
Uh, uh, so they're on an Imperial planet that's processing and transporting coaxium in this location. And then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I don't think we have to go far. His space yacht's just kind of sitting over there. I'm like, what? Why? Why is it on the same planet? What? What?
Originally, it was supposed to be an island. They were supposed to be on an island, not a ship. Was the original concept. They were going to be on one island. That's where Crimson Dawn worked out of, on one planet, but they changed it to a ship.
I mean, I guess that makes sense to me, but it's just whack to it. It just, I get it that they have no ship now to get anywhere, but it just feels so lazy. Of like, oh, we just got done with this job. Okay, look over to the left, and there's the starship that we need to be on. Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Just feels lazy. Um, not one of the biggest nitpicks that I have, but just weird.
Sure.
It's fun seeing her again, and I do kind of like the back and forth that we get between those two. I do wish that we had just gotten maybe a little bit more about her, and like why, like what things has she done. And I'm not saying that we need to see that during this movie. I think that if you did that, there's already so much that's happening during this
Crimson
movie.
Dawn Disney Plus show.
Right. Boy, I gotta talk about that last action sequence
With
in
Enfys Nest. I was just going to ask you too what you thought on Enfys Nest. So hit both.
Enfys Nest is they're the
They're
Marauders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
thought so.
the rebels, if you will.
They feel so tacked on, to be completely honest. It also, not to mention, it feels against Han's character to even be remotely helping them. Like he has that moment of just being like completely in control, and also the fact that he shows up to this random processing plant, and I mean, I guess they do have the tracking device, but the fact that they show up at the processing plant and that everyone there is like with them or like supporting the Marauders, I'm like, okay. It just feels weird to me that Han at this point would be like, yeah, I'll help you guys out. That's fine.
Yeah, for me, Han, I think when he shoots Beckett, everything's gone sideways and Kira's ship flies off. I think that is the biggest moment for him. And I think that's where he goes deep inside himself. And I think he realizes that I think he sits back, and they don't even necessarily put this in the movie, but I think he sits back and goes, Kira was right. All I did was be the good guy. I just lost the girl of my dreams that I've been fighting for years to get back. I had to kill the only guy who was actually kind of showing me what I want to do. And then the people who I helped, I don't want to join the rebellion. And I think that's when he's like, I'm done. We're going to go help Jabba. Let's just do this. It's just me. And I think showing that in this movie ends up helping for then when he does it again, when he, years and years of being this infamous scoundrel, and then all of a sudden another beautiful woman looks at him and is like, look, who he's starting to fall in love with, says something, he goes, all right, I gotta be the good guy again. Like he's gotta. I think it helps, because somebody who's always bad and then suddenly does something good, it doesn't make much sense. You know what I mean? Like
it's just I guess for me, he grew up. He like I mean effectively. Oh gosh, there's got to be a better term for this, but he's grown up on the streets of Corellia. He's learning real fast. He's learning to boost cars. He's learning to think on his feet, think quickly, don't trust anyone. And I guess that's where and that's always been a very integral part of Solo, like as a character from like his upbringing on the planet of Corellia. It's a really rough and tumble kind of a place that he's in. Corellia has some awesome spots in it, but he's in effectively the construction yards constantly. And like it's nice because we do get that connection with the character with Kira. It's like, oh, we do see that little heart of gold in there does exist, and I like that. I guess it just for someone being as streetwise as he is, it just feels like he's leaning, like he's given way too much trust to some people at times, and that just feels at odds
I
for me.
do feel where you're coming from, and I think it's a script problem. Like they couldn't
Right,
decide, did he become Han Solo on Corellia? Did he become Han Solo later? Like they couldn't decide, and they kind of just kept everything, kind of half happening all over the place, which then
right.
made it inconsistent. So I do agree with you
Like for
on
instance,
that.
the moment there are a couple moments where I just really wish that instead of like him getting lifted off the planet by Beckett and his crew, I really wish that we had gotten the Han Solo moment of like him coming in and being able to either like he has the right hand to deal in that moment of, or he's going to strong arm them or convince them in a certain manner of like, no, you're taking me with you. He almost does it. He almost does it in the moment where he's like, okay, well, you guys aren't part of the actual Imperial Trooper Corps, so I'm going to turn you in right now. Then he immediately turns on him and he's like, nah,
I
that's not
actually
how it
really
works,
like
kid.
that moment. Yeah,
I
I
like
like
that.
when he says that and he brings him over.
No, don't get me wrong. I love that moment. I think that's great because that really speaks of. I feel like that's a very solo moment of he's playing his hand a little too far in that
Yeah,
moment, and I like that. But I just wish that we instead of him relying on Chewie and Han of them just like rising up and coming back down, that it had been a moment like a tense moment of all of them sitting together as I don't know. There's either a
sure.
gunpoint or him being like, "Hey, got some muscle over here. I know you got a job. What do you say
Yeah,
we try to little work something out right here?
sure.
I don't know. I take 5%, something like that.
No, I'm
I think
taking
that just I think
25.
that's a little bit more. I think that's a little bit more fun. And oh, but I love Dryden Voss. I also I love the fact that Paul Bettany plays Dryden Voss. One of my favorite cuts that we actually get was when there's a conversation that's happening between Kira and Han, and I think they make mention of like, oh, I'm sure he'll be in an amenable mood, and then it hard cuts to him just stabbing the local governor.
Yeah,
That was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, I
yeah.
like that. That's
And in my
good.
research, there was discussion on was he going to decapitate him or not.
Ooh.
Yeah. I do want to, now that we talked about the movie, I want to go through. I just want to take this
Oh,
whole moment here. I'll
super
jump on the
quick.
soapbox. Go ahead.
Super quick. But Dryden Voss, like him, that end fight scene is atrocious. I cannot
Yeah, it's not
stand it.
great.
He runs, he goes and picks up two knives, while Han goes and picks up his blaster. They're both sitting across from each other, and he's not the dude that can just like step back, hold his position, and wait for him to step out. Instead, he is the dude that approaches and then waits for him to get on top of him.
They just
And
needed a fight.
it's so sloppy and all
Yeah.
over the place, and it's just yeah, I'm not crazy about it.
And we'll get to why. So, I have listed out here all of the production problems that happened on Solo, including some interesting tidbits that I pulled. So I'm gonna go through it. The history of Solo, a Star Wars story, if you will. So Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who directed the Lego Movie and 21 and 22 Jump Street, were hired to make the movie. There was that image that came out. It was the two of them and all of the actors in the Falcon. It was I remember it got everybody pumped. So at some point towards the end of production, Kathy is told that Alden isn't happy. Alden apparently went and spoke to producers, other producers, and said he wasn't enjoying, he doesn't think he's giving his all as Han Solo because Phil Lord and Chris Miller are apparently shooting 30 or more takes of every single scene and constantly telling them to go off book and to go ad lib, to just go off of your own chops. And that they wanted to be, when Phil Lord and Chris Miller were hired, they said, we are going to make a bold Star Wars movie. And they wanted to take the humor in a very bold direction. I mean, you see the Lego movie, you see 21, 22 Jump Street. That makes sense. That's what they do. But Alden apparently goes and says, this is not going to work. I don't feel comfortable. I am constantly having to do things I don't want to. If you've seen the movie Hail Caesar, the movie is absolutely atrocious. I absolutely do not recommend it, but Alden is pretty good in it. It's the only other movie I've seen him in. Um, so I understand from an actor's point of view when you're told that, this isn't what you signed up for, you go and talk to somebody. That producer talks to Kathy Kennedy. Kathy Kennedy goes and watches the dailies. And that's where you get the quote where she says, "This feels like Ace Ventura." She is just watching all these takes and says, and the quote comes out, "I'm watching Ace Ventura." Whatever producer leaked that quote had probably stood by her when she was in a fury rage because her prize actor is saying that he doesn't feel comfortable with these two directors that should be doing a better job. Um, and remember, this movie comes out after The Last Jedi. So she is on her heel. She's nervous. So they end up firing Lord and Miller with 3 weeks left of production, which you don't do. They debate, try to figure everything out, and they decide to bring in Daddy Ron Howard. And I still land on this camp. I think if Ron Howard is hired to direct this movie from the beginning, he's not called a safe choice. He's not called the uncle to fix everything. He's a great director coming in to do a Star Wars movie who knows George, knows the property. I think that's what happens if he's just originally hired to do the project. He ends up reshooting estimated over 70% of the entire film, delays production, and goes massively over budget. The first teaser they get is the Super Bowl. This movie came out in May. The first full trailer drops 3 weeks right before to not great reviews, although I like that trailer. They had poster copyright problems. They released all these posters that people started thinking looked kind of cool. They looked Western. They looked different. They stole them, colors, font, everything. Then the movie comes out in May. Everybody's baffled. Why is Star Wars not in Christmas? We thought Disney was going to do it this way. They don't. The movie does not make money, loses a ton of money, massive failure. Bob Iger then on a call, on an Investors Day call a couple years ago, a couple years after this, a couple years ago from today, says, "I made a mistake. I did it for the investors thinking this movie would work. I wanted to get a Star Wars movie out. We were struggling to make some quotas. My fault. Should have kept it in December." So then it goes dark for a while. And then when the Blu-ray is about to come out, John Kasdan reveals a bunch of stuff that is also in apparently a commentary he does. He released 53 tweets, which are really just tidbits. They're just tidbits. They weren't necessarily drama-fueled, but I think there is a little bit of drama in this and some interesting points. So I pulled out the highlight tweets. The chase scene in the beginning on Corellia was all Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It was their idea. They came up with it. They executed it. Ron Howard reshot the whole thing. Both the writers, John and Lawrence Kasdan, the original writer of Episode 5, wanted an entire sequence and had it written of us seeing Han train in the Imperial Academy and get kicked out of the pilots fighting. Thought it was extremely important to him. It didn't happen, he said, for various reasons. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are the two who came up with the idea for Han to speak Shiriwook. Did I say that right? I don't think I say it right.
No, that's about it.
It was their idea to have that happen. He said they thought it was that John Kasdan said him and Lawrence liked the idea.
I'm not crazy about that personally.
They think John Kasdan said when Han is talking to Dryden Voss and comes up with the plan, they say they love that moment. It's one of their favorite in the entire film, and when writing it, because they believe it's the first time you see Han really be Han. That he is backed into a corner, came up with the plan off top of his head, and convinced them to work it. I thought that was a nice little tidbit. L3 was created by everybody, by Phil Lord, Chris Miller, Lawrence Kasdan, and John Kasdan. All came up with the idea of her as a droid. I feel like Lord Miller lean a little bit more towards the end up product we get.
Hmm.
Um, Lando's cape closet was all Lord and Miller. They wanted that in there. They wanted to see it. Um,
I'm okay with that. That was funny.
Now, here's something I actually did not know. Michael K. Williams, fantastic actor from Empire, was originally cast as Dryden Voss, shot everything, couldn't do the movie when Ron came in. He shot everything until the firing, because by the time the firing happens, they've wrapped filming. They're in production. Ron Howard came in and said, I need to reshoot this, and he was contractually obligated and overseas filming something else.
Ooh.
So they had to recast him. So everything with Paul Bettany was shot in a very quick, fast manner, and he performs a very different Dryden Voss. Now, I have a quote from Michael Kay, who says that the original idea, when he shot the scenes he shot, he said
Hmm.
it was much more of what he called a pissing match between him and Han for Kira's attention. That it wasn't necessarily sexual, but that they had a much more clingy feeling with each other, and that he really controlled Kira a lot more than what we saw from Paul Bettany. That
Hmm.
is all I got. That is the millions of problems we have. And I would like to know Tanner's thoughts. And I'm about to stand up, but I can hear you. And audience, I just need to get a charger because my technology is about to die. But Tanner, what are your thoughts?
Oof, that's a lot.
Yep,
Some of those feel so whack. Absolutely so whack of like, why do you go with that decision? Though that's funny that you bring up the whole idea, I mean the whole thing of like um oh man, I didn't actually realize that it was that they were trying to do the like very ad lib. I remember reports coming out, or at least from when I read around that point in time, was that they they're having a hard time, or I mean that they wanted to go for a much more comedic script and really kind of lean into the a much more comedy style of things. And initially, when I thought about that, I was like, I feel like you could do that. I mean, like,
I agree.
um, but the product that we get, it just doesn't feel like it, it feels like part of it's trying to go there, but then the next moment it's not trying to go there, and it's just this constant pull back and forth for tonality in the movie.
And I think
Eh,
that that shows the fact that they
yeah.
reshoot so much. I mean, any scenes that he kept that Lord and Miller shot, you know, they have a different feel because they completely reshot Ron's version of
Hmm.
the scenes with Dryden. Like there's so much that causes that. I really do, because I agree with you on the tonality, and I think it comes from the amount of problems. And I do want to point this out too, where she gave them, I remember a report, she gave them an opportunity to, like, hey, you need to rein this in. Like, our actor is saying this, you have
Hmm.
to. And they said no. They won't. That they signed on to do a bold new Star Wars movie, and she had every right to fire him. She's their boss. But I mean, there were problems on Rogue One where they weren't liking some of the stuff. Some test screenings weren't going well, and Gareth Edwards, whichever one it was, played ball, and Tony Gilroy came in and directed some sequences. Sometimes you got to play ball. But
Yeah.
please continue your thoughts on the massive amount of problems.
uh I get a pissing match between Dryden Voss and Han Solo. That sounds just the way that that's phrased, that sounds atrocious. That sounds like why I just don't understand why we want to watch, why we would want to watch two characters doing that over uh fighting over a female character. I do enjoy that they actually give her far more agency than the sounds of that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. When you watch the movie, I think there are moments where it does feel like Kira and Dryden have like a little bit more of like an intimate relationship.
Right.
whether that is forced or not, and I think there are moments where Han shows it, but if it was much more of like the way I think he meant it is like his version of Dryden Voss was like, this is my property. Like she is basically my slave. She's my right hand woman. Like
Hmm.
she is mine. And when Loverboy comes strolling in, I think it irks him. And then I think that irks Han. And I think it's just kind of, I think what he means by it is that it was a lot of subtle clapbacks, at each other, necessarily than
Interesting.
like a massive, uh, um, pissing contest. And I think you can see that in Kira's performance when Emily Clark reshoots some stuff.
Hmm.
And Paul Bettany, there are times that she kind of puts her arm around him, and it feels a little more intimate, but not
Right.
nearly as much. It's like hinted at, and it sounds like this was a little bit more on the nose. But the fact that you have to reshoot all the Dryden Voss scenes, including the final last action moment, and that has to be shoehorned in, that is going to cause problems for your movie. It just
Right.
is. But any
Don't
other
don't
thoughts
get
you
me
have?
don't get me wrong. I feel like you do need a fun like final action piece, but to be honest, I really feel as though the whole Dryden Voss thing should have just I don't know. It just wound up of one dude whipping out a blaster and putting a blaster into another dude. Maybe that's just
Yeah.
me, but um
And you don't know,
then
maybe Ron Howard said, "Look, this is the cheapest, fastest way I can get this final fight shot. This is the
right.
best it's going to look with these circumstances. I can't do anything more than this." And that's probably what happened. Maybe they had this really epic final, moment.
Hmm.
Um, but, you know,
Who
it is
knows?
what it
Like,
is.
I mean, it really makes you wonder. Like, I would love to be able to get like a YouTube series, or because I mean, they would never, you would never be able to get like a documentary of
I
like
That's what I want though. I
it'd
want
be.
like what's the Apocalypse Now documentary? Um
Oh, I know
see
exactly
that
what.
that
Yeah,
documentary, um that thing is awesome because they interview everybody, they get all the drama, all the crazy problems. If they in like 30 years could convince somebody to either write a book or get a documentary made where everybody was just honest about what happened, that would be awesome. Like to be a
here's
fly on the wall during that time would have been amazing.
here's the kicker of that I find is I just don't. I think people like us would love it. I would sink my teeth into that so hard to find out what happens. Specifically with Solo, I don't think there's enough interest for people to be like, what happened behind the scenes, because really the release window and the lack of marketing, just also like mixed, very like middling reviews when it released. A lot of people really aren't that interested in it.
If you look at the
Though,
scores though on Rotten Tomatoes, the movie is 70% by critics and like 68 by audience. Like people like the movie enough.
yeah,
The final product we got,
yeah, usually 70s I usually consider of like
it's
people are like,
fresh.
it's an average hitter,
Yeah, it's fresh
right?
on Rotten Tomatoes at 70. Um,
70 is something that I go watch for sure.
yeah.
Oh, there's another thing. So you're by yourself. Then we'll call you Solo.
You just brought up my number one thing I hate. I hate it.
Why?
I hate it. Why? Why?
Just ah.
Look, in that moment, I'm sitting there thinking I'm about to go full Anakin Skywalker, and just start taking people out. Tanner, I'm gonna paint a picture for you. Going into the movie, I knew we were gonna get something about the name. At some point, we were gonna find out something.
Mm-hmm.
I've rarely groaned in a Star Wars movie out loud, been like, "Oh my god!" Like I've rarely done that. I did that for almost the entirety of Rise of Skywalker, and I did it in Solo in that moment. I hate it. And I've gotten in this argument with our good buddy Caleb before, where he's like, "You just don't even need it. You don't even need to bring it up. You don't even bring it up." And yes, that's true, but they're going to. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to, you can do it in a better way. I think it fixes everything if Han just says it. If he says, "Who are your people?" and Han goes, "I don't have any people. I'm just Han," and then he just sits there and goes, "Solo. I'm Han Solo," and he does it. I think it fixes everything. I think it's acceptable. But the fact that this smirky little imperial turd muffin is just sitting there and he's like, "Oh, you don't have any people." Well, Solo. I hate it. I hate it. It would have been so much better if Han just did it. To me, that's got to be one of the slapstick things, and Ron just didn't take it out. I don't understand how you let that slide. I don't understand how you write that. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know how. If Lawrence Kasdan thinks that's Han Solo, the creator of really who Han is, thinks that, then I want to sit down and find out why.
To
Because
be
I
honest,
need to hear that conversation.
I just would have been okay of just him coming up. I'm like, I'm Han Solo.
Sure.
My mom,
That would have been fine with me too.
my mom and dad are dead. They, I became an orphan and was picked up by these people. My name's Han Solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm fine if they don't address it. I'm fine if Han says it, if Han has the moment of realizing he's alone now and he's solo. All that works. I hate it. I hate it though. It's one of the worst parts about this movie. And I defend this movie a lot, but I cannot stand that moment. I think it
Yeah.
is Star Wars at its worst.
Here, you know, I was talking to my significant other about this one of like, I don't know if I'm as harsh on this movie if it's just a Joe Blow Star Wars story.
Like this is just about a smuggler coming up. It's not Han.
Just an up and coming smuggler. Then I think if this is like I mean, don't get me wrong. I think some of the action sequences, some of the directing choices and character choices, mostly L3, those moments I'm like, let's change that. I'm still going to be critical of that. Last fight scene, still going to be critical of that. The Marauders or Rebels, gonna be critical of that one. But I almost have to wonder if this was just a movie about a Joe Blow smuggler, and we're just telling a fun Star Wars story off in the off in the side shoot in the galaxy. I wonder if I'm as critical of it.
Sure.
Maybe it just. I know that some of this criticality might there's some level of bias that does exist here with me. I understand that because
it's gonna happen.
Han Solo is one of my favorite characters. There's a lot of content that I've consumed about him. So, I mean, you kind of have that. But I just it was close, didn't hit the mark for me.
But it doesn't ruin Han for you, right? It adds a few things you like, and then maybe there's one or two things you're critical of. But I think that's when the movie went to craziness and everything hit the fan. I think that's the real success. Is that Ron came in and made a movie good enough where people weren't going to be like, now Han Solo is ruined forever. It was going to be, okay, there's some parts that really stuck or stunk, but the rest of it's fine. You know, like it didn't destroy who Han is. I think that's the real success of this movie.
No, and I mean, to anyone that's that comes in there, and I guess maybe this is just me of like I compartmentalize things. Like, are there some things that they do to the Han Solo character that I'm not crazy about? Yes. Does it ruin who I have like grown up and loved to enjoy seeing Harrison Ford playing Han Solo? Absolutely not, because they are two different things.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there's some fun things that are in there. I do kind of wish that they had given a little bit more air to the card game of him actually winning the Falcon, because that's always been like a fun bit of Star Wars trivia that has been like talked to throughout the original like series and so on, of like how he got it. And
the game of cards.
The game of cards between the two.
Stuff. I like both games. I do agree with you that I wish the second one got a little bit more airtime.
Right.
But I think both of them are fun. I think they're very Han and very Lando.
Yeah. No, I like once you get the chemistry between those two across the table, you're like, yes. Go
ahead.
I almost wish that he had just won the Falcon in that scene. But then we don't get Lando coming along as well, and I don't know.
I love when Han at the final moment shows Chewie his cards, and Chewie just goes, "Oh." I love it, and I think it's great. And I'm excited for what the Calrissian Chronicles are going to bring. Yes. If that's going to be the real, that's officially the name of the show, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're doing it off the offshoot of
Yeah.
him like sitting on the ship, just like Calrissian Chronicles.
Yeah, I knew
Death
they were. I
Arrived.
just couldn't remember if it was official, but I hope Han kind of pops in for an adventure
Yeah,
for an
and I
episode. I
guess
think he deserves it.
popping off my head just thinking about it, I wish they had done the Kessel Run a little bit more of like instead of just ended up turning it a chase away from the Imperials and then a big scary monster. Whereas classically, the Maw, like yes, there is a like big black hole that exists in there, but the entirety of the Kessel Run is a number of black holes, and what made you such a good pilot was if you were able to navigate all of these just pieces of
Yeah,
terrain and black holes that are in there, and if you can make it like the reason that he's able to make it as quickly as he is because he's just that good of a pilot.
yeah,
So I think it would have been fun if we had a chase scene of like him trying to navigate a little bit more instead of the like, okay, gonna wait to the last minute and boom. Even though visually there's some amazing things that happen in
yeah.
with that. I love that.
You know what I would have liked to have seen, Disney? The son of one of the best pilots ever in the galaxy and the grandson of one of the best pilots in the galaxy fly a ship. Would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, that kind of would have been kind of neat.
But anyway, any final thoughts? We've been going for a good time here. Should probably wrap it up here.
Let me think. I guess, yeah, I'm gonna hold true that like it's a fun romp. It's got problems though.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But overall, I mean, I would I think some of the higher moments of like the moments that I really like in Phantom Menace, I really like. The only thing that elevates this one up a little bit more for me is those fun little like glimmers of golden light that come out of this movie of like Han Solo being Han Solo and the interactions that we get between him and Chewie, or like the moments of like, not if you round down, buddy.
I love that moment.
Love
it much. Not if you round down, buddy.
Oh, and not to mention, Han shot first, bam, takes out Beckett.
He always does. I love the interview. What?
How was he able to get ahead of Beckett when Beckett was like miles away?
I thought that when he was going, and you know that there's a deleted scene of Han just sprinting his butt off to get around. But yeah, I agree with you on those points. For me, it's over both of them because, I love Duel of the Fates. It's the only thing I love in the movie, and there's not pretty much anything else I like. I like a lot of the stuff in this, and I love a few things. My loathing is so much smaller, so I have it ranked higher. So I think I would go 3 Clone Wars, Solo, 1, 2. I think currently.
I'm in the same boat. Yep.
All right. Well, I think for that we are out of here. Another happy landing. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to the Movie Meal patrons. This was a fun one. I enjoyed this. Rebels is going to be next week for season 1. I'm weirdly really, because we're reading Catalyst. I'm about halfway through the book right now, and I've read the book before, so I've been really enjoying my reread, and now I'm like jazzed for Rogue One. So as much as I love Rebels and like I want to watch Rebels, but I'm sitting there being like, I gotta hurry up and watch Rebels because I know Rogue One's next, and I am just pumped for it.
Dang it! There was actually a book. I even spaced this one out. I think there's like 1 or 2 books that actually have like good tie-ins to Star Wars Rebels that I meant to run by you, but totally spaced out. But I'm really enjoying Catalyst so far. And
good. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. All right, guys. Go get some merch. Use that promo code Movie Meals at Teespring. All links in the description. Tanner, thanks for joining, as always.
Thanks for having me, my guy.
For another happy land, and we are out of here.
Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.